It's honestly just celebration of democracy, and it is my pleasure to introduce Jenny Laughlin. She is the president of the Richland Area Democrats, so please help me in welcoming her.
Well, good afternoon. It's good to see you. I can kind of see you. Boy, I'm not a stage person, so I didn't know this was going to be what it looked like being in the lights. I'm glad you're here. Thank you for coming. I am Jenny Laughlin. I'm with Richardson Area Democrats. I'm the president, and I am very thankful to all of you for coming, and thank you, Ariana, for that nice introduction. We are honored to be joined by these candidates, and despite the extra work that a primary entails, we are fortunate to have candidates who care enough to run. I want to thank our co-hosts, first of all, the Student Government Association of Dallas College, Richland Branch. You guys, they did such a great job of getting this put together. I appreciate them so much for all the work and this facility and just making this so easy. I want to thank especially Kelly Sonnenstein. She's with the student government, and I'm sorry I don't know exactly what her title is, but she was especially helpful to me, not only in this preparation, but also in CD 32. Thank you so much, Kelly. I also want to take a minute to acknowledge all our co-sponsors who helped spread the word and bring out the people today. Progress Texas and Kathleen Thompson was great in helping us publicize this. Thank you to them and for all the work that they do. Preston Hollow Democrats also, thank you, Catherine. And your team, thank you so much. Lake Highland White Rock Democrats were also very helpful. Thank you, guys. The Funky East Dallas Democrats also helped us this time. Thank you so much for your help. Stonewall Democrats of Dallas also was great. Thank you. And thank you to my board. The board of directors for RAD. You guys are so supportive to help us get here, go along with all the crazy ideas that I have. 3 debates in 9 days is nuts. Just that, in case you're ever wondering why there aren't very many debates locally, it's kind of crazy to do them. But I'm glad that they supported me, and especially Preston, who is up in the booth running our video that we're live streaming to YouTube today. And Derek Gay for helping me with the candidate liaison. He has been great getting everything organized there. And thank you all for coming. Today is to help us choose who will be supporting in these races. And I wonder, how many of you already know who you are going to be supporting? Give me a clap. All right. How many of you are undecided? Okay. Well, we hope that by the end of this, I'm going to ask you again if you changed your mind or if you made a decision. So enjoy the debate. We're going to start with Senate District 16, and I'm going to introduce our moderator, who is Kendall Scudder. He is the Vice Chair for Finance of Texas Democratic Party and host of the Pod Bless Texas. I always want to say Pod Save. Pod's Bless Texas podcast. And there he is. And I will let him take over. Thank you.
Hi, how are ya? Thank you guys so much for coming out. We had a very intense bout of rock, paper, scissors backstage to decide who would go first. So we'll talk about that in a second. But I'm just absolutely tickled to be here. Before I kind of lay out what the guidelines are, I want to make sure we get our candidates out on stage first. So we'll go ahead and start with Representative Victoria Niave Criado and State Senator Nathan Johnson. And yes, have a seat. Two buddies of mine. I've been able to be on the campaign trail with both of them, and so excited to see you both here today. Thank y'all for joining us. The way that we're going to format things today is we're going to go through and ask questions. You'll have 2 minutes to respond. Then the next person will have 2 minutes to respond to that response. And then the person who was initially given the question will have a 30-second rebuttal. And then we want to make sure that each other has an opportunity to respond if their name is mentioned. So we're going to give a 30-second opportunity for people to respond if time runs up, or we need to make sure we allocate that fairly. So that'll be done at discretion. So, in the important game of rock, paper, scissors that happened backstage, Nathan Johnson did paper and he won. He beat rock. Womp womp, right? And so Nathan got to decide whether or not he wanted to go first or second on the first question, and he chose second. So the first question that we're going to have today is going to go to Representative Niave Criado, and let's just dive right into it. Oh, yes, sir. Oh, yeah, you're right. That's a really good point. Do y'all want to be moderators? Because you can, no, they made up a good point that I left out the fact that they're both going to get opening statements, 2 minutes to open. And if time permits at the end of today, we're going to give them closing statements as well. But if time doesn't permit, we're going to go ahead and scrap that so we can move it. So let's do opening statements then. And so we'll go ahead and start with Representative Niave Criado.
Thank you. Thank you so much for the opportunity to be here, and Kendall and Senator Johnson and all of you for coming today on a Saturday. I'd love to share a little bit about my background. I was born and raised here in Dallas. I'm the daughter of an immigrant dad and a strong Tejana mom who emphasized to me the importance of education and focusing on school. I grew up in Pleasant Grove and drove, it took me about an hour north to Ursuline Academy of Dallas. My parents scraped and saved. And so one of the big issues for me is the importance of education, because the quality of your education should not be determined based on the zip code in which you live, and which is why we fought so hard against Governor Abbott's voucher scam, and very honored to be a part of the House majority along with my House Democratic colleague, Representative Ana Maria Ramos, where we killed vouchers in the Texas House. I am an attorney. One of the big things that I focus on in the Texas legislature are issues that disproportionately impact women. We are severely underrepresented in the Texas House and the Senate for years, and so my legislation, from my very first bill to a lot of the big bills that I have passed, have focused on the rape kit backlog, domestic violence, sexual assault, sexual harassment. My Lavinia Masters Act that I passed got $50 million from the Texas budget. I named it after a woman named Lavinia who was 13 when somebody crawled through her window and raped her at knife point. She then went to obtain a sexual assault exam, and her rape kit sat untested on a shelf for more than 20 years. 20 years before it finally got tested. So I created a local sexual violence task force with subject matter experts, the DA's office, rape survivors, SANE nurses, to come up with multiple legislative solutions. And I filed and passed a lot of bills to address this. I also worked, and since then, since our bill has been passed, we have had thousands and thousands of untested kits now tested, bringing long overdue justice. Oh, thank you. Is there a timer somewhere that we can?
I don't see a timer. I'm gonna consult with the organizers of the Jenny. Let's proceed with closing statements the same way while they're figuring that out, if that's okay, Senator Johnson. And so you'll have 2 minutes to give your introduction.
we have to fight. There is so much at stake, and there are multiple reasons why I'm running, but this district was substantially redrawn. It is over 49% people of color, or over 70% people of color, 49% Latino, and we started watching the votes of the incumbent, with all due respect to him, and I want to bring a different voice and we have to fight with everything that we have. So I want to bring a choice to Democrats about the type of leadership that we want, and whether we're okay with the current leadership, or are we ready to step up our game? Because there's so many fights right now. Individuals are being terrorized by Governor Abbott, Ken Paxton, women who are having to travel out of state to obtain reproductive health care. We have a governor saying that people on the border, he's doing everything except murdering individuals. And I know that we'll get into some of these issues, so I want to be respectful of the time, but I'm happy to dig into those in a little bit.
Thank you very much. And Senator Johnson, we'll give you 3 minutes.
I'll try to take 2. Thank you all for taking this very, very serious election so very, very seriously enough to be here on a Saturday. You know, we're coming up on 3 years to the day when Winter Storm Uri devastated the state with temperatures and conditions never before seen in Texas history. And the grid failed, as you all know. You all suffered the trauma. Some people were without power for 4 days. Some of you were without power for 0 days. I never lost power. Some people died. People lost their homes, $200 billion in insurance damage. It turned this state upside down, and the energy capital of the world was embarrassed before the world because people died, businesses failed, and homes were lost. I got to work right away to think, we cannot tolerate the energy capital of the world unable to keep an oxygen machine turned on, or a nursing home with power, or water towers from freezing. And I set to work with national experts in energy, and we developed a system of backup power distributed statewide to make sure that water towers don't freeze, that police can still get to you in an emergency, that nursing homes don't fail, that hospitals have power, that TDEM can get to emergency routes when they need to. And I passed it out of the Senate against all expectations. And we got it into the House and passed it and got $2 billion to deploy these things. Whether we're working on the grid that accommodate our emergencies or can accommodate us for the next 50 years, we're working on Medicaid expansion, an area where I've led the state for the past 6 years. It is the greatest privilege in the world to wake up every morning caring about what you do, and to go to bed every night caring about what you do, and work with great people who care about what we're doing, and it matters. It makes a difference, because we are charged, and having been in office now for 3 sessions, I've seen that those efforts are not moot. We actually are making a difference. And because I'm now burdened with the knowledge that change is possible, I want to keep doing it. I want to make sure that the future that we are building for this state is worthy of the pride that we have in our state, and worthy of our kids staying here, coming here, choosing to live here, and growing the strength and influence of the Democratic Party, so we're not just playing defense. We can and must be effective in our attacks, in our defense. We've also got to make sure that we are pushing forward our vision for this state. That's why I want to go back there. That's why I greatly appreciate you being here and engaged in this process, and ask for your support in returning to office. Thank you.
Now we're going to dive into questions. Great intros, guys. Y'all knocked it out of the park. Okay, the first question that we're going to have for y'all today, this one is going to be directed at Representative Niavi Criado. It pertains to education. So Texas public schools comprise a large majority of the budget of the state of Texas. Despite a record $33 billion surplus, Texas schools once again maintain their funding shortage. And a story in the Dallas Morning News on Monday exposed that Texas schools are set to lose another $300 million in Medicaid funding for children with special needs. What in your legislative track record would indicate that Democrats can trust you more than your opponent on improving public school funding?
Thank you so much for that question. I have been fighting for more funding for our schools. We know we have teachers who are working 2 and 3 jobs just to make ends meet. We have the dollars. It's a matter of legislative priorities for the Texas legislature to invest these funds into our neighborhood schools. The majority of the students in Texas public schools are diverse students of color, and we need to make sure that they are getting every tool and access to the best resources, because we want them to graduate high school and go on to college. I'm a first-generation college graduate. I graduated here from UT Dallas. I attended Dallas College colleges, community colleges. So I want to thank the students that are here and that helped organize this. I was also in student government at UT Dallas, and so we have to continue to shine a spotlight on the real lived experiences of what a lot of students are, first generation, but we have to invest in our schools. We fought in the House with everything that we had to try to protect our schools against Governor Abbott's voucher scams. This year, I also chair the Mexican American Legislative Caucus. We are the largest and oldest Latino caucus in the country, and the reason I share that is because we led the fight on so many of Governor Abbott's attacks against all of us. When it came to vouchers, and with all due respect to Nathan, to the senator, and while he may have voted for against certain bills at the time, when vouchers came to the Senate in the fourth called special session, we were there doing everything that we could to fight that bill, to kill it in the House. When that bill came to the Senate, Nathan Johnson was absent on the day that vouchers came, on Thursday, November 9th, leaving the residents of Senate District 16 without a vote. And so it's a matter of showing up. It's a matter of being there. We have done everything from filed legislation. I got an amendment onto House Bill 3, which now requires students to fill out the FAFSA and as a graduation requirement. Oh, I see my time is up.
Senator Johnson.
The first thing we can do to make sure that we have funding in our public schools is to make sure that public school dollars go to our public schools, not vouchers, which is why I kind of got in trouble on the Senate floor when I called the legislators irresponsible, spiteful, disrespectful, and misguided when they introduced vouchers onto the omnibus education bill. Part of that omnibus education bill were some bills that I filed. The best thing we can do for education funding is to index it to inflation and put more money into what we call the basic allotment. The basic allotment is the amount of money that the state gives to school districts using some property tax dollars, some state dollars every year for each student. The basic allotment was changed in 2019. It was raised. It was a big deal. It was also reconfigured. It is designed so that if we dump some water into that, it actually goes to the places it can be most useful. Not just a general budget, but there are different populations that have different needs and programs that need more money. The basic allotment is a brilliant way to do it because it took years and years and years of education experts getting together to devise. I know I talked with them when I filed this bill to index the basic allotment to inflation, which if we had done it would have resulted in $15 billion more dollars going into public education and $4,000 pay raises for teachers. In addition, we should be basing our funding on enrollment, not attendance. Attendance fluctuates, enrollment does not. That way teachers and school districts have predictability with their funding. Third, we got to treat teachers with respect. That's why when a pregnant teacher came to me and said, I don't have paid parental leave, I said, you should. And I filed the bill to have paid parental leave. And when I learned that teachers can't afford to be teachers because they have little kids that they got to put in daycare, why don't they have free pre-K? So I filed a bill for that too. Some of that found its way into the big education bill, which got killed by vouchers, which was when I called him out on the floor and got in trouble. In 10 seconds, was I present for the fourth or whatever voucher vote? No, that was November 9th when the legislature had never been in session. I had a 6-month work commitment. I had to be out of town. It's true. I missed the vote. I've also filed this legislation. Opposed vouchers, always have.
Thank you. And Representative, you'll have 30 seconds now to wrap that line of question up.
Absolutely. Our schools, our education is the biggest issue facing our state. Our Texas economy and the success of our Texas economy is directly intertwined with the success of our students. I want to make sure that our teachers have all of the tools that they need, that they have the resources, that we are investing in our schools instead of taking dollars away. We had fights in the Texas House when we had big property tax bills coming up. We were trying to get funding for our schools while tax breaks were being given on property taxes because we had the funding there. And the fact is, we have to fight with everything that we have. We can't be absent for whatever reason. We have to be there every single time.
Thank you. Okay. Our next question is directed towards Senator Johnson. Senator Johnson, in October, you cast a vote in favor of SB 4, a racial profiling bill that is being challenged by Democrats as being unconstitutional. That grants a 10-year sentence for having an undocumented person in your vehicle, even if it's a family member. Why should Democratic primary voters in a state where the governor is in a near constant standoff with the president on border security look to you for leadership on a more humane approach to immigration?
Well, the first thing we should do is understand that this question is largely tracking what people have said, including my opponent, and it's false. There were 5 SB4s last year, because there were 5 sessions, a regular and a special. 1 SB4 in the 4th special session is one you're referring to. It's a yucky, wretched racial profiling bill. It came up 3 times prior. It was, I think, 2024, SB2, and SB11. And if you check the record, you'll see my vote no, no, and no. I have never, ever voted for a racial profiling bill. If you'll check my comments on the Senate floor and in social media, I have always opposed the backwards, regressive, unproductive, inhumane, cruel, and ineffective policies by Abbott and his administration. The vote that I did cast was for human trafficking, and it is not a crime of driving somebody who is unauthorized. By the way, this bill's been in effect for 24 years. The bill was not a new bill to pull someone over. In fact, it contained no basis on which to pull over anybody. In fact, the underlying law that it affected, with a penalty enhancement, has been in effect for 24 years, and in the last 7 years in Dallas County, a grand total of 1 person has been arrested. This bill is about human smuggling. It affects the penalties on convicted human smugglers, like the people who took 60 immigrants last year who died in the back of a truck. I worked with my Senate colleagues, including my Hispanic border Senate colleagues, to lower the penalty that was increased there. And thank goodness we did, because they couldn't kill it in the House. My position on immigration has been very clear. We do need a secure border, and we should be working with the federal government. I've been saying this for years, not against the federal government. It is absurd the way we have conducted ourselves. I accused the Senate Republicans of funding Greg Abbott's re-election campaign with border wall money. Not privately, publicly, on the floor. I think it's very easy to count on me on these issues. I will continue to advocate for smart policies, humane policies, good treatment of people, and secure borders.
Thank you. And Representative Niave Criado, you'll have 2 minutes to respond and expound on your position on SB4.
Thank you so much. And his whole excuse right now for voting for that bill shows exactly why he does not understand how his vote is harmful to brown and black people, as well as not just people of color, but any of us can now be charged. And let me explain why. I lead as the chair of the Mexican American Legislative Caucus. We fought with everything that we had, and wrong, Senator, I personally killed that bill with a point of order when it was House Bill 800 in the Texas House. So go back and look at the record on that to correct you, sir. That vote is one of the most terrible votes that he could have taken. Governor Abbott, it is a racial profiling bill, and the fact that he keeps denying that shows that he does not understand the impact to us. 2, Governor Abbott specifically weaponized this smuggling statute because before, a judge had the judicial discretion to determine whether you have a real smuggling case or not. Now, any law enforcement in Texas can pull any of us over, whether you're an American citizen or not, and charge you with this smuggling for driving somebody who is undocumented. Civil rights groups have held and testified all year long about how this is a racial profiling bill. We understand the impact because it's going to be our community who is pulled over, and we're working with law enforcement and hoping that some police departments do not enforce this bill, but we are back to 2017, and if he cannot understand that Governor Abbott weaponized this specific statute for a reason, he cannot represent this newly diverse district. We fought with everything that we had because we know if we're driving somebody to the street. In 2017, we had immigration informationals when Trump became president, when Governor Abbott was pushing an SB4 bill back then. Parents concerned about being separated from their children if they are arrested or deported.
Thank you. And Senator Johnson, you'll have 30 seconds to respond on that.
Sure. If this is a racial profiling bill today, it's been a racial profiling bill for 24 years. Again, this statute had to do with the penalty. Is my opponent saying that it was fine to have a racial profiling bill when the judge had discretion about how long to put him in jail? Racial profiling is okay as long as you don't have to go in the slammer for too long? No. I think you have to ask yourself questions about whether or not people are representing things to you honestly. This is for convicted human smugglers, not driving someone to the store, because the elements of the statute are you are driving someone for the purpose of evading arrest. I think my time is up. That's a short 30.
Yeah. And you did mention Representative Niave Criado. So
I didn't say anything about her, though.
I want to give her 30 seconds to respond to that.
Thank you so much. House Democrats overwhelmingly voted against that bill because we understand that is the day that you see viral videos of our colleagues being passionate about this, because we know the impact on our community. It is why we must fight with everything that we have in the Texas Senate. We have to have a fighter, not somebody who does not understand the impact of that or caves to Dan Patrick in certain circumstances. His excuse right now just confirms that we're doing the right thing because he does not understand the impact on people of color.
Thank you. She did mention you, and that was the rule. So you do have 30 seconds.
I don't
to
need
respond
30.
to that.
If she thought this was a racial profiling bill, I want to know why in 4 sessions in office she never did anything about it until it became politically advantageous to do so.
Governor Abbott just weaponized this specific statute to be used against people of color. He made this his priority bill. Why do you think it passed? He pushed it in a special session. We were able to kill it in the House. I killed it with the point of order, as I mentioned. That statute was not weaponized until now by Governor Abbott, and you see everything that he is doing, using words like invasion, which are hateful against Latinos, that drove a person from North Texas to kill brown people at a Walmart in El Paso.
Thank you. Okay, we're going to move to the next question. This question is to Representative Niave Criado. In the 2019 legislative session, you cast a vote in favor of the so-called Born Alive bill in committee, allowing this bill to make it to the House floor and then pass the Texas House. In a statement released following this vote, you credited your Catholic faith as the rationale behind this vote. So in future legislation involving abortion rights, where will you draw the line between what is best for Texas women and your personal religious beliefs?
Thank you. And that committee vote was a committee vote and not a final vote. And I will say that I am 100% absolutely pro-choice, support our reproductive rights. It did not have to do with specifically a woman's right to choose. It dealt with medical treatment, but nonetheless, if that bill were to come back up, I would vote against it. But regardless of that, I have been a Planned Parenthood champion. All of my sessions in office, I have been recognized and endorsed by Annie's List. All of our sessions, we have fought day and night to protect our own reproductive rights. The fact that we have an attorney general terrorizing a woman, who has to fly to another state to obtain reproductive health care is not acceptable. We do everything that we can in the House through amendments, through bills, through points of order to fight with everything that we have to protect our right to choose. And I'm going to continue to do that as I have in the House and fight with everything that I have because we know that the impact that it has. This is an attack by Republicans to take away our choices because they want to control our ability to control our own destiny. We are rolling back. They're taking us back 50 years. We know that women have fought for generations and marched in the streets for us to have the right to choose, and I'm going to continue to fight with everything that I have for our community because we know what's at stake. There was data that just came out that showed that there have been more than 26,000 pregnancies as a result of rape. That study just came out a few days ago, and imagine the rape survivors who were not just traumatized once, but now have been traumatized again by being taken away their choice whether to have an abortion or not. That is not acceptable. We understand the reality and what it means for us to be able to have the right to choose. I helped organize with Dallas women's marches for years so that we can highlight and thank you.
Senator Johnson.
It was House Bill 16, and it was a bill to persecute abortion doctors, and it was a bill to perpetuate and advance the attack on abortion rights. It's not the only bill There was a bill last session, Senate Bill 24, the Republicans renaming their ugly alternatives to abortion program to this Thriving Texas Families program. And it had some nice things in there. It sprinkled some money in for pregnant mothers. It also disparaged and attacked the whole concept of abortion. It also banned anybody who provided in the program from even talking about not just abortion, it banned them from talking about contraception, and it encouraged family formation so that you could be a participating provider if your sole mission was to tell a young pregnant woman, go get married. This was part of the mindset, of the narrative, of the propaganda being pushed by the far religious right to wipe out permanently people's right to choose, women's right to have an abortion. I didn't vote for it. My opponent voted against it appropriately, but then saw fit to change her vote in the record and say, I was recorded as voting no, but I meant to vote yes. Meanwhile, I filed 4 bills last session because I take this stuff seriously. I filed a bill to legalize abortion, medicated abortion under FDA rules. I filed a bill to get rid of the pre-Roe abortion statutes. I filed a bill to make sure that anyone who helps a woman leave the state to obtain abortion care cannot be prosecuted. And I filed a bill to block these stupid abortion travel bans being enacted by local counties. That is a serious commitment to abortion rights. There's one of us who is, there's one of us who isn't.
Thank you, Senator Johnson. And Representative Criado, you'll have 30 seconds to respond on that.
Thank you. This vote is the same vote that's being used against Representative Julie Johnson. And let me tell you how this is such a stretch, because this particular bill, I am a member of the Women's Health Caucus. Our chair, Donna Howard, also voted for this bill. This was a strategic move because this particular bill, when it got to the House, had funding specifically tied to a bill by State Representative Tony Rose to get 12 months of Medicaid expansion for pregnant moms in Texas. It had other funding that was at risk, and it was a strategic vote with our Women's Health Caucus.
Thank you. The next question will be for Senator Johnson. Polling suggests that in addition to immigration and abortion access, inflation and the economy is a top issue in the minds of Texas voters. So in your upcoming term, what are some realistic and kitchen table solutions that you believe you can accomplish to ease the burden of rising housing and cost of living?
You want politicians to be realistic. Okay.
I know.
Okay. First of all, when we're talking about economic growth, we got to recognize 2 things. Texas economy is going to grow. It will grow. The forces are with us. The question is, how is it going to grow? Is it going to grow equitably, or are we going to have an exploitive economy? So what are the kind of things that we can do to make sure that we grow in the right way? I mean, some things don't sound like economic, but they really are, like Medicaid expansion. We would create, I think it was 238,000 jobs. And they would be jobs in healthcare. They would be jobs where we're actually getting paid to take care of one another and lead better lives. Medicaid expansion is an economic driver. It actually is a net revenue positive just to state and local governments, and it brings down your property taxes. That's one way we need to grow our economy. We also need to make sure that out in the energy sector, as we're building the grid of the future, billions and billions of dollars are coming in here for renewable power. And if we don't preserve the ability for Texas to be a leader in renewable energy, we're throwing away jobs, good, high-paying jobs. These are distinguished from Governor Abbott's plan to take reserve officers, state National Guards, and put them down at the border and play Candy Crush on their cell phones outside of a private ranch. That's not very productive because they're not home doing their job. That is a waste of money. So we got to think about ways that we spend money. The economy's going to grow, but we need to make sure that it grows in ways that help people. How about education? Look, we all know that when you spend money as a government, it generates economic activity. Teachers are barely making it. If they were making more money, they would spend more money, which would generate more taxes, which means we wouldn't be as reliant on property taxes, which means we might not have recapture. We need to be thinking every step of the way. How about tax breaks? Let's touch that. I have an article in Maybe Outside where I attacked the $18 billion tax break that I voted for. It was great. We can afford a tax break. Did we need $18 billion? Is there something more productive we could do, like water infrastructure, with maybe 6 or 8 billion of it? We need to make smarter investments with state money that have a return. Thank you.
Thank you. And Representative Niavi-Criado, you have 2 minutes.
Thank you so much. I want to talk about education and then housing. One, education is the key. We know that if we graduate students college ready or ready to enter the workforce, that is going to impact our Texas economy. And so we need to make sure, as I mentioned before, that we invest in our schools, that we fight against Governor Abbott's voucher scams, that we raise teacher pay, and that we give the students every resource that they need to be able to go to college, that we make college free or affordable. That's one clear way. We also need to raise the minimum wage. It's $7.25. People are unable to put food on the table with making so little money. We need to raise it to at least $15 an hour. In addition, housing, right now, there are so many families in this district. This district spans everywhere from Pleasant Grove, where I grew up, Box Springs, Mesquite, part of Dallas. It comes up here to Richardson. It goes to Oak Cliff, Irving, Grand Prairie. It goes all the way down to the Sand Branch area, where we have people who they have no drinking running water, which is essentially living like in a third world country and is shocking. And so we're going to be digging into policies to help the Sand Branch community as well. But the fact is that there are so many families in our district that are living paycheck to paycheck. Over 50% of the residents of the district live in our renter-occupied housing. There was a bill in the House and a bill in the Senate to try to take away local government's right to give tenants a few extra days to pay your rent so that you're not evicted under these strict statutes. We fought in the House to try to kill that legislation that was against tenants, and Nathan Johnson voted for that Senate version of that bill against the interest of the residents of this district.
Thank you. Senator Johnson, you'll have 30 seconds.
Very good. Actually, I forgot to mention affordable housing. It's important, and I've actually one of the only people who have passed the bills. Somebody came to me recently and said, I want to support you. I'd never met him. I said, why? He said, well, I work in affordable housing with community development corporations. And as far as we can tell, you're the only legislator who has actually taken a serious interest in affordable housing. You've passed legislation, you've worked with the Texas Department of Housing, and you filed a bill to try to increase the stock of affordable housing. As for a vote on the eviction laws, if you take a look at what causes homelessness, it's not 3 days to pay your rent. It's poverty, it's high prices, and it's lack of social services. Those are areas where I really am helping.
Time's up. Thank you. Okay, the next question is going to go to Representative Niave Criado. And in July, Texas Monthly published an interview with Representative John Bryant where he emphasized the importance and need for bold leadership from legislators and talked about the lack of focus from members on regaining a majority. Do you believe that it is the responsibility of a Democrat in a safe seat to assist other Democrats running across the state? And if so, tell us about a time that you helped a Democrat that was working to flip a seat in the legislature.
Absolutely, and thank you so much for raising that question. And he's right, we need bold leadership. We need to be standing up at every juncture, and when we are under attack in times like this. And I'm honored to have Representative Bryant's endorsement, as well as Representative Ana Maria Ramos, and a long list of other colleagues and local elected officials as well for our campaign. This district is now a safe seat. It's no longer a swing seat. From the very time that I was elected, have helped candidates to try to flip seats and do everything that we can to drive up the Democratic vote. Even last election, we had a libertarian opponent that people may not see as viable. We still ran a full field campaign, mail, digital, to voters to try to drive up the vote so that we can get people to help the top of the ticket as well from candidates that were running statewide. We all have to work together as Democrats, and after these elections, we all have to come together as well to try to get whoever our Democratic nominee is going to be to run against Ted Cruz. And the fact is, we need people who are going to inspire the next generation of people to turn out to vote. We need to ensure that we are bringing in Latinos into the Democratic Party, people of color into the Democratic Party, and let them know that we're fighting for them and not voting against their interest or for racial profiling legislation that is harmful. People are not going to want to turn out for somebody like that. I am honored and have worked hard. I have worn out my shoes knocking on doors to turn out voters in our district and for other candidates. And in Mesquite that we overlap with, we just flipped 2 seats of 3 that we were trying to flip on the Mesquite City Council. We just elected the first African-American person ever in Mesquite City Council's history, as well as the first Latina ever to Mesquite City Council. And that's the investment and time that I bring in helping other candidates flip seats as well.
Thank you. Senator Johnson.
Thank you. Having flipped a seat myself against Don Huffines back when people thought that couldn't happen, and we won by 8 points, largely because of engaged people like you, I do appreciate the value of gaining the Democratic Party's strength, not by turning against each other, but by taking Republican seats away. That's why last session, when I did have a Republican challenger, but this is a safe seat. It's 65-35. I think if I have a pulse, I would have won the election. But I spent hundreds of thousands of dollars trying to turn out the vote anyway, including many tens of thousands of dollars devoted specifically to a Latino turnout project. So we can figure out, how do we reach people? How do we help people have their voice heard? It's absolutely critically important. Why was I spending all that money when I didn't really need to? Because I wanted Beto O'Rourke to be the next governor. Because I wanted to flip all sorts of seats. Because I want the Democratic brand to be the brand of strength that people turn to because they trust us to rule with compassion and vision and competence. So every effort that I make is geared towards that. And I get calls from people all around this state saying, how'd you do it? And I say, luck, and partly because you've got to know how to communicate with people that gives them confidence that you are the one who can flip that seat. You got to make them know it's possible, you got to let them know it's necessary, and you got to know that you'll be effective when you're there. I will devote my time to any candidate who wants to flip a seat to offer what I can, based on my experience both as a candidate and within the legislature, to help them flip that seat. I will help anybody turn out voters. I will myself and have myself knocked doors in every part of the district because it's critical. We cannot sit around in the minority, and we can't sit around and just wait for the Republicans to lead on substantive issues. So one of the ways we flip seats is demonstrate that we are the ones who can fix education and the grid and the water infrastructure and health care. That's how we flip seats.
Thank you, Senator. And Representative, you'll have 30 seconds to rebuttal on that.
Thank you. And we have consistently overperformed in our district because we talk to a lot of people that feel like they have been left out of this political process. And we're going to continue to do that because we know that every single vote matters in the House especially, and every single vote matters in the Senate. And we have to inspire people to turn out to vote, and that's what we're going to continue to do, knocking on doors, talking to voters that are not included in mail programs, and have been ignored by the democratic process and have been ignored for years.
Thank you. The next question we have is going to be for Senator Johnson. What is the piece of legislation that you are most proud of championing in your time in the legislature, and what's one vote that you wish you could take back?
Strangely, as for the most proud, there's one that I passed and one that I didn't, so I want to mention two. One that I'm most proud of is one that's never passed. It's one of the 12 bills I filed to expand Medicaid in the state. The one that got the most traction, the one that at one moment had 76 co-signers in the House, where Julie Johnson carried it for me in the House and did a great job getting all the Democrats on board, of course, but also getting Republicans to sign on too. That was Medicaid expansion. It was a comprehensive, we call it an 1115 waiver, where we get permission from the federal government to structure our Medicaid expansion in a way that draws maximum support. And in this case, it allowed employers to participate. It allowed the individual recipients in the expansion population to contribute themselves. It had health counseling programs built into it. It had work counseling, not work requirements. It was a great program. And it was hard for anybody to vote against it, but for the ridiculous ideology. I think we almost got it. We just happened to have slammed into brick walls at the top levels, which is why I also found a way around that and passed a bill with a Republican in the House who cares about health care, who wouldn't have voted for Medicaid expansion, but we did pass a bill that brought down $1 billion in federal subsidies every biennium and is estimated to have brought health insurance to around 200 to maybe 300,000 low-income Texans like those in Senate District 16. So there's a bill I passed, a bill I didn't pass, but since I still have some time.
And the second part of that question was, what's one vote that you wish you could take back?
Oh, vote I wish I could take back. There's probably a few. I'm not perfect. We go through 1,000 bills or so every session. There was one about architectural materials that I'm not sure about. I don't have glaring votes that I wish I could take back. I wish there were votes where I could give speeches before I take the vote so people would understand them. But I have a fantastic staff, and we stay up late at night before every floor session and try to cast the right vote. I won't always get it right, and we won't always agree with each other. But I don't have any that I feel really deeply wrong about.
Yeah, time. Thank you. Representative?
I'm most proud of our Lavinia Masters Act. That took years. It was a big omnibus bill, lots of experts coming together, and the fact that that legislation has now eliminated one of the rape kit backlogs in Texas means so much for, I know, the women who have had to go through the trauma of being raped and then waiting for years for their kits to get tested. And so that is the landmark piece of legislation that I'm most proud about. We also passed legislation relating to domestic violence this year, working in partnership with the Dallas Police Department, because intimate partner violence is one of the key reasons that women are getting murdered in Texas. In addition to our gun rights, hopefully we'll be talking about them. Happy to, I know there was a timer just.
Yeah, that's an error. I'm tracking it right now.
Okay, thank you. And so the legislation that we passed was inspired by a woman named Alessandra who was murdered by her boyfriend who had a history of intimate partner violence and she did not know. Our legislation creates a free database that anybody can access in partnership with DPS. It just went live and we're about to be publicizing that new website where it contains information about repeat offenders of individuals who have been convicted multiple times of stalking, aggravated assault, aggravated sexual assault, so that women are empowered, not just women, but anybody can be empowered to know whether the relationship that they're in, it would be healthy or not, but so that they have that information. That is the first of its kind in the country. The family is in partnership with the Dallas Police Department, will be pushing this legislation to try to get it implemented across the state. And so those are the types of issues. I've also passed legislation to extend the statute of limitations for sexual harassment cases in a Republican-led legislature. That is not something that is easy. It also took multiple sessions. So a lot of these issues on domestic violence, sexual assault, sexual harassment are bills that I'm very proud of because I know the impact. We have over 200,000 domestic violence reports every single year, and we know those are just the ones that are reported, but there are way more than that. Okay.
Yeah, sorry. I know that the time, it got a little mixed up because of the clock.
Okay, thank you.
That's time. And then Senator Johnson, you'll have 30 seconds. Can we make sure we got that on the clock? There we go. You'll have 30 seconds.
I yield my 30 seconds to my opponent so she can answer the second half of the question.
Well, you mentioned her, and she'll have 30 seconds now, so that's fair. So,
thank you. And apparently you have a clean voting record because you regret no votes. The vote that I do regret is the Born Alive vote. And so as we look back and we know what Republicans are doing, and so that's why we fight every single day in the Texas House, and we'll continue to do so because we know the impact on our bodies, our rights we have to protect our rights at every turn. And so I'm going to continue as a woman, as a member of the Women's Health Caucus, and we're going to continue to fight if we have any additional special sessions, but we have to fight to restore abortion rights here in Texas.
Thank you. And I've got some great news. We are going to have time for closing statements. But before we do that, we're going to do a really quick little segment of some rapid fires that aren't going to, they're 5 words or less is what we'd like, kind of like these answered in, just to try to pin you down on where you're at on some issues. So we've got 6 rapid fires I want to run through you. That question originally started at Nathan Johnson, so we're going to move this one to Victoria Niave. So the first question on the rapid fire is, do you support a moratorium on charter schools?
Yes.
Senator Johnson?
I filed a bill to throttle the growth on charter schools.
Thank you. Senator Johnson, do you support a ban on drag shows or drag story hours at community libraries?
No.
Representative?
No, and Nathan was one of 2 senators to vote present not voting on an LGBT discriminatory bill.
That's not the question.
Mentioning
if
him
we want to have a
hang on.
this,
Mentioning him is going to give him 30 seconds. So we need to set a clock at 30 seconds on that. Sorry.
Okay. If we're talking about LGBTQ rights, we can note the fact that I've filed 8 bills in 3 sessions to make sure that we have equal treatment under the law for the LGBTQ community, including restoring the right to gay marriage because it's still illegal under Texas law. And when Roe fell, we're worried about the right to gay marriage is going to fall. That's why I filed the bill. Repealing the ban on sodomy, all sorts of bills. She's filed 0. As far as a PNV, I voted with probably the single greatest champion in the legislature on LGBTQ rights, Jose Menendez, so we can expose the Republican hypocrisy. I'm going to take them down by their own arguments. We should never have had that bill up.
And you mentioned Representative Niave, so you're going to have 30 seconds on that.
Thank you so much. And I'm not even sure that that was a clear excuse or reason for why you didn't stand up for LGBTQ rights when we know our LGBTQ community is under attack. That bill that he voted PNV, which is not standing up, was filed by one of the most extreme senators, Mays Middleton. That's not acceptable. We have to fight for our LGBTQ community at every step of the way, our transgender community, because we know that they are under attack, and he has not done that.
Thank you. Okay, let's keep this one rapid fire, guys. Next question goes to Representative. What's your favorite TV show?
That's probably, I love Lord of the Rings.
Okay.
But I know it's not a TV show. But.
Senator Johnson, what's your favorite TV show?
What's the soccer one?
Ted Lasso?
Ted Lasso.
Okay. There you
I don't watch a lot of TV.
Loves it a lot, apparently. Okay, next question to Senator Johnson. Should sitting members campaign against Republican colleagues?
Against Republican colleagues?
Mm-hmm.
As in, should a Democrat challenge a Republican?
No, should you actively campaign against your legislative colleagues that are Republicans?
Oh, should I be endorsing a Democrat who's running against a seated colleague?
Yes.
I don't know. I've never really thought, I think not. I think that we have to work with our members, and if you want to be effective, that's not a very effective way to go. When you're at the top levels, maybe.
Okay. And Representative Corretto, should members campaign against Republican colleagues?
Absolutely, yes. If you have Republicans who are... Thank you.
Okay. Representative, do you support the death penalty? Representative? Oh, sorry, yes.
I have big issues with the death penalty. I believe it's government-sanctioned murder. I understand that there are circumstances where some families feel like that is the justice that they need, and so it depends.
Okay. And Senator Johnson?
I don't think it can be equitably applied, so no.
Okay. And then Senator Johnson, who is your political hero?
Abe Lincoln.
Representative?
Eddie Bernice Johnson.
Okay. And then the last one, Representative Criado, will do that one to you. Should we raise the age to purchase assault weapons to 21?
Yes, and we fought all year long. Nathan Johnson voted with Republicans to block that amendment
Thanks.
when it came up in the House, in the Senate.
And Representative Johnson, you'll get to respond to that, and we're going to put 30 seconds on the clock.
Senator Johnson will do so. Yeah, I support it. That's why I joint authored a bill to do so. The Democrats in the Senate put together an omnibus bill where we supported the whole panoply of gun safety legislation, including raising the age to 21. I never voted with Republicans to keep an amendment. That's why 10 of the 12 Democrats voted the same way I did. The amendment was already off. This was about the institutional rules of germaneness. It gets into issues, but they're the same rules I used to kill Republican bills, including the following week when I did. There's no question where we are on gun safety.
Thanks.
We are all in favor.
Time. Okay.
Thank you.
So,
Can I respond to that?
I
Because
didn't hear him mention your name.
He mentioned the vote, which is what, and I had a few seconds.
I'm sorry. The rule was if they mentioned their name. I'm sorry. But the good news is we have closing statements. And so we'll get to go to closing statements now. The opening statement started with Representative Niave Criado, and so we'll start closing statements with Senator Nathan Johnson. 2 minutes.
You send us down there with a mission to represent you well. When I beat Don Hoffens, I promised 2 things. I would fight like hell against the Republican right-wing drift that's pulling us off the table, that could jeopardize, actually ruin the beautiful future this state could have, and that I would find ways to meet the needs of the people in this district and this state. You've got to do both of those things. My fighting is notorious around the Capitol. People tune in to see what I'm going to say on the floor, and I get in trouble all the time, but I still manage, despite getting in trouble, despite writing articles lambasting what the right is doing, and they're in the Dallas Morning News. Whether it's Medicaid expansion or the way the session was conducted or these ridiculous special sessions or their abortion rules, I go after them all the time. But I've also passed about 100 bills in 3 sessions. I passed almost 50 bills last session, and they matter. How do I know they matter? If your baby doesn't go deaf next year because of a bill I passed to get cytomegalovirus testing that wasn't previously available, that wasn't part of the ordinary routine for newborns, if you have running water when the transformers go down, it matters to you. If you have a loved one with Alzheimer's and they get better treatment, or a teen who's suicidal who has a new tier of mental health care, it matters to you. If you're involved in construction or banking, it matters to you that I can pass commercial bills. That's part of our job. And if we can't do both of those things, we're never going to flip the state. We've got to convince people that we are going to work with compassion and empathy and curiosity to understand things like geothermal hydrogen battery power. Yep, it matters. All that stuff matters. I want to go down there and keep working on the stuff that I've started because we're making progress. And if you give me your vote, I promise I will. And in so doing, we will grow the strength of the Democratic Party. We won't be playing defense. We will be building our vision for the future of this state. Thank you so much for being engaged.
Thank you. And wrap it up, Representative Niave Criano.
Thank you so much. The Uvalde families would come every single week to lobby for one issue. That was to raise the age to purchase an assault rifle to 21 because the mass shooter that went into their school waited till he was 18 to purchase an assault rifle. Every Democratic House members, we fought and made that legislation a priority, advocating every single day so they could get a hearing and so they can get a vote. So the fact that, with all due respect, that vote came up in the Senate and he blocked it, and that amendment was germane to the underlying bill, is a slap in the face to those families and to everybody. It doesn't matter if it came up later, it didn't. The fact is that that was an opportunity to have a vote on the raise the age amendment to 21. Every single vote matters when we are under attack by this governor, when we are under attack by the lieutenant governor, by Dan Patrick. We understand the urgency of the votes, the urgency of the fight. I have been able to deliver landmark legislation for the women of Texas on multiple issues, have fought for our LGBTQ community. I have fought as a chair of the Mexican American Legislative Caucus against Governor Abbott's attacks on diversity, equity, and inclusion. Diversity is now a bad word, apparently, in the Republican Party. And we have to continue to fight with everything that we have. That is my commitment to the constituents, to the voters of this district. And we're going to fight all the way because we know what's at stake. And there is a difference between who understands the urgency and the crisis of the times and who doesn't. And so I'd be honored to earn your vote. We're going to do everything that we can to flip this state. And just as we flipped this district and ran then against an incumbent who voted against the interests, we're going to continue to work hard to do that again. Thank you.
And a round of applause for your candidates for state senate. Thank you guys so much for taking time out to come out today. Thank you to the Richardson area Democrats for letting me be a part of this. And a quick shameless plug for the Texas Democratic Party and your local county parties. Regardless of who wins elections, your Democratic Party is here putting in work to try to make sure we're electing Democrats all across the state. So please consider supporting your local Democratic clubs and county parties. So thank you all so much for coming out today.
Thank you guys for being so attentive. Thank you to the candidates for your great answers and to Kendall for your great moderating. Thank you so much. Now, before you guys walk off the stage, I want to see how effective you were. Not to put you on the spot, but how many people were swayed by this conversation that didn't already feel, how many people feel differently now than you did when you came in? How many people stuck with what they knew and are solid on who they were supporting. Okay, one more question. Thank you, guys. How many people still don't know who you're going to vote for? Well, there you go. You've done your work. Thank you so much. Well, if you're up for it, we have got another debate. We are going to go right into it as we are kind of pushing our time. The Congressional District 24 candidates are going to be coming out here in just a minute. Our moderator is going to be Sean McCafferty. He'll be, yes. He's from up in the Collin County area. We had him run for Congressional District 3 a few years ago. So I'm going to let you guys work this out while we wait just a second to bring out our next people. We're good? Okay. All right, they're back here. I'm going to go ahead and get it started so that we don't delay any. Sean said, hurry up. This is Sean McCafferty, attorney and former candidate for CD3. And this is Francine Lee, running for CD24, and Sam Epler, running for CD24. Thank you guys for coming, and I'll let Sean take it.
You're gonna let me take it?
You go ahead.
Oh my gosh. I don't have anything prepped or anything. Just these questions. I'm teasing you. It's fine. Thank everyone for being here. I really appreciate it. We have two excellent candidates for Congressional District 24. Our format is pretty much what you just heard. I don't think we do rapid fires, and we're not going to do an opening statement. So if you want to introduce yourselves in the first answer, that's fine. But I think they know who you are. Your faces are on the billboards outside. And we'll just sort of start getting going. And it's going to be a 2-minute answer, 30-second response. If you mention the other person's name, I'll give you another 30 seconds to respond to that. And that's how it's going to go. And then we'll have 3-minute closing statements, okay? All right. The first question is about sort of your district, the demographics in the district, and sort of how you plan to win the district. So in 2020, Congressional District 24 was considered a prime battleground district in Texas. The Democratic challenger, Candace Valenzuela, lost by less than 2 percentage points and with a vote gap of less than 5,000 votes. After redistricting, however, the demographic map changed dramatically. The incumbent won by nearly 20 points. The Texas legislature's gerrymandering efforts reduced Hispanic and Black citizen voting age percentages from approximately 30% to 19%, and increased white percentages from 55 to 70%. Given these substantial demographic shifts and apparent built-in partisan advantage for the incumbent, how can you mobilize the electorate, and why are you best positioned to win in a contested general election against a well-funded incumbent? First question goes to Francine, since you're closest to me. I just made that up.
Hello. Thank you for the question. To win in 2024, I do have a plan. There's a 10-point plan strategy, but I'm going to share just a few. What I've been doing in the past decades, just going out, GOTV, which is getting the vote out, going out, talking to communities, different communities, African American, Nepalese, Korean, Vietnamese, Muslim, faith-based community, getting them to understand the importance of voting. Also, making sure that we engage our youth. I do help participate in March to the Poll event, and we do host a candidate forum and voter education and meet and greet and stuff like that to ensure that they understand the importance of going out and vote and getting them registered and prepare for each election and reminding them that there are at least 5 elections each year in Texas that is a primary runoff, a municipal runoff, and the general election. So election is just not once every 4 years like most people understand it to be, but it is continuing, and I need them to have that commitment, promise me that they will go out and vote frequently every time there is an election. And I think, I said 3, I forgot. I've been doing this so long that I don't remember. Teamwork, team building, mobilizing. I'm on the SDEC formally, and we are always looking at the proper way to message to ensure that we bring out voters to the community. And issues that's important to all of us. Yes, we're unique. Each one of us has our own personal opinion and biases, but as an American, as a Texan, as a member of the community, we are role model for our future generation, and we need to learn how to work together to get things done.
Thank you. Mr. Epler?
Thank you. And first, thank you, Sean, for moderating. Thank you, Ginny, for putting this together with Richardson area Democrats. Go Rad. Thank you as well to the Student Government Association of Richland Campus. I know that Preston Hall of Democrats and Progress Texas also sponsored, so thank you all for making this exercise in democracy possible. I was a high school principal, but before that I was a math teacher. And I want to do a little bit of math because I think the math has hope contained inside of it. So yes, this district, Congressional District 24, is an R+10. That means the politicos think that it's going to go 55% to Beth Van Dyne and 45% to either myself or Miss Lee. They, the politicos, gave that same distinction, that R+10, to Congressional District 32, calling all red seat, in 2016. No Democrat ran. Nobody ran. They thought it wasn't winnable. Hillary Clinton carried that district by almost 6 points. In 2014, yeah, let's clap that up, right? In 2014, Sean mentioned that last cycle, Beth won by 20 points. Well, in 2014, Pete Sessions won by 39 points. In 2018, we all know what happened. Colin Allred sent Pete Sessions packing to Waco for 2 years, and then he went back to Congress. I say this because we can do this. If we run a campaign, if we have a candidate, an infrastructure, a community that comes together and decides that enough is enough, I do not want to have an extremist Marjorie Taylor Greene Jr. representing me in the U.S. House of Representatives, we can get out there and talk to people in the middle, independents, that don't want to see a representative go on Newsmax every day and talk about her no votes on every single dollar that comes back to North Texas, that goes on Newsmax and talks about why we should defund our Department of Education, the Department of Homeland Security, pretty much everything. So thank you, my time's up, and I'm excited for this opportunity.
Thank you. The next question is going to be on immigration reform, which is a hot topic in the news today. The Republican Party has made clear that immigration will be a central issue for voters in the 2024 election. The House GOP refuses to deal with the president or the Senate on immigration reform, and Governor Abbott has defied recent Supreme Court rulings and has mobilized the Texas National Guard to militarize a border defense against illegal crossings. What proposals do you favor that actually address the influx of immigrants along the southern border? And what kind of legislation could be proposed that would actually resolve or reduce the immigration pressure along the Texas, Arizona, California borders? Sam?
Thank you for that question. I want to be very clear. This is going to be the topic that we are going to hear every single day until November 5th. Immigration, 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 the border, the border, the border. And the reason for that is not because one side wants to get something done. The Republican Party, led by our previous Cheeto-in-chief, Donald Trump, he has called pretty much every member of Congress and said, don't make a deal. Don't solve the problem. Because it's politically advantageous for our border to be unsecure, for immigrants to die, for our communities to not have the resources they need to stop human trafficking, to stop fentanyl smuggling, because 9 months of politics is more important to him than solving a problem. And that's horrible. It's one of the reasons that I'm running. I don't believe in this kind of extremist firebrand politics that would lead somebody in government to decide to delay a solution for political gain. There is currently a bipartisan deal in the Senate that is putting forth thousands of new Border Patrol officers, thousands of asylum officers, immigration court judges and clerks, money for new technology to inspect vehicles at our ports of entry, but the House of Representatives and Beth Van Dyne will absolutely block any of that from happening until November. And that is what we need to signal as Democrats as the problem in government, and that is what we need to run on. I am excited to talk about the border. I want to solve these problems. I want to run for office. I want to be in office to get something done. Politics, to me, this should not be a career. It is an opportunity to get something done and then pass the torch on. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Epler. Ms. Lee?
My approach will be similar to what the president has put forth. As the member of Congress, I am charged to work with the other side to ensure that legislation that benefits the community is passed. Yes, as a legal professionals, we need more judges because without judges, those orders cannot get signed. If they're not signed paperwork, there will be a backlog. We do need more equipment to go through. There's machines that need to be installed so that the backlog or the line can be easily rushed through. More Border Patrol agents would also help move the line along. Now, in terms of crisis, I think that if we are unable to handle the crisis, the border crisis, the migration crisis, we should call in the international community to come and help us. I myself came here as a refugee. Asylum can only be applied for when they're here in the U.S. Refugees, you have to stay in your country to apply. And our paperwork was processed at the Thailand refugee camp, and it was by the support of the late Rosalind Carter that the situation, the crisis that was at the Thailand refugee camp was brought up to the world stage, and the international community came in and helped and completed the paperwork where every family can go to those countries, France, Germany, England, the U.S. Our family is the only one that came to the U.S. So, you know, the international community can come and help. We don't have to take it alone.
Thank you. Your time is up. And so for these substantive questions, the next series of questions are going to be substantive policy questions like that one. There is a 30-second response if you would like, if you were asked first. So since you were the first one to be asked sort of a substantive policy question, if you have a response for 30 seconds, feel free to take it. Also, feel free to decline. Up to you.
Yeah, I would just say, you know, we need to support the president's solutions right now to secure our border and to surge money and resources. But we also need to talk about long-term solutions, because just short-term fixes, that's not how we should govern. You know, when you look at people coming from Latin America, I taught these students. They walked 1,200 miles in some cases. They had siblings that died on this journey. And when you ask them why they're coming, they say, well, because I didn't have a roof over my head and my parents didn't have jobs. And so when we start legislating for the next 10 years, we need to fundamentally look at where American business and dollars are flowing. Why are we having
That's 30 seconds, Sam.
That's my 30 seconds?
That's your 30 seconds.
Oh, man, I didn't even get to my policy.
You can finish your statement, though. Come on.
Let's reallocate some of that funding to Latin America and make this hemisphere strong. You don't see an influx of people coming down from Canada when, you know, there's a golf tournament across the lake in Detroit. So why don't we focus on making sure that Latin America is stronger as opposed to our interests 6,000 miles away across the Pacific?
Okay. Our next topic is going to be Women's health and reproductive rights. Ms. Lee, you're the first go at this one. Texas was a leading state in outlawing abortion procedures and the first state to sort of outsource potential enforcement actions to private parties to prevent and discourage medical providers from giving essential care to women facing critical reproductive health decisions. As we all know from the news recently, Kate Cox has sued the state of Texas to challenge the law, was forced to leave her home state to obtain a safe medical procedure that was otherwise outlawed. As a member of the U.S. House of Representatives, what can you do to ensure that a woman's right to make her own healthcare decisions is protected? And is there a way for Congress to create legislation that would undo or reduce the harm of Texas's current draconian abortion laws?
Thank you. As a member of Congress, I will definitely do my best to codify Roe. And I won't be able to do it alone. I have to work with the other 434 members to get this thing done. Growing up, I fear that my children now have less rights than I do, and that's a reality. I enjoyed the freedom, the American ideals that this country has bestowed upon me, and my two daughters' lives will be in jeopardy if this remain in place. I know that there are differences of opinion when it comes to bodily autonomy, but we have to respect our individualism, and I believe that as an American, we do have a right to our privacy, and I would never want anyone to come and interfere with the decision regarding my children's medical decisions, and I don't think government should too. Our founding fathers have made it clear that we, the people, should have the freedom to live our life within the confines of the rules of the Constitution and the law of the United States. And we should not allow someone with someone or some entity that disagree with our basic healthcare needs to dictate to us what's right and what's wrong for our family.
Thank you, Ms. Lee. Mr. Epler?
Thank you. So a member of Congress, a newly elected member in January 2025, the first thing they will have to do is certify the presidential election. That will be the first thing that I do. Beth Van Dyne objected and did not do that in 2020. After that is done, the first bill I will propose is to codify Roe v. Wade. And the reason for that is because of freedom. You know, Texas is a state that loves to talk about freedom. But right now, under Ken Paxton, who apparently thinks that his law degree from the University of Virginia gives him the right to tell doctors what to do at UT Southwestern, in Texas, women do not have freedom. My sister had a high-risk pregnancy with triplets, and she was recently in town, and when she landed at DFW and we picked her up, she said, wow, I have less rights here. And it was a profound statement, and she followed it up with, I'm so glad that I didn't have my 3 beautiful girls in Texas, because I would have been scared every single day. And what happened with Kate Cox is horrible. It's unimaginable. And it was made worse by these draconian laws that are on the books. You know, these laws go so far as to say, at the county level, there are counties in Texas that are talking about pulling people over to say, you know, if you travel through our county to go out of state to try to get a medically necessary abortion, we will prosecute you in our county. Think about that for a second. Does that sound like freedom? Police officers indiscriminately pulling people over because they're women and asking, ma'am, what's the nature of your business today? To me, that's unacceptable, it's un-American, it's un-Texan, and that's why the first thing that I would do in the United States Congress is to codify Roe v. Wade. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Lee, you have 30 seconds to respond if you'd like to.
It is extremely sad that the governor and his team are actually attacking women because they disagree with our reproductive choices. And I just find that as Texans, we are better together, and our individualism is what makes us stronger together.
Thank you, Ms. Lee. The next topic is gun reform. And the first question will go to you, Sam. Sulphur Springs, Uvalde, Allen, we've all heard these cities. It's the list of Texas cities, some of them, impacted by horrific acts of mass gun violence. Gun reform action appears stalled in Congress, and with Texas legalizing constitutional carry, it does not appear that it is at the top of any agenda here. What reforms do you believe are achievable at the national level? And how do you mobilize your electorate to support what are largely and wildly popular regulations on gun ownership, sales, and safety?
Thank you so much. Up until last month, I was a high school principal in Greg Abbott's Texas. And I took a leave to run for Congress because I think this is important. I think running against extremists is important. As a principal, I would watch my students get on the bus, get off the bus, and I would think to myself, you know, what happens if somebody showed up today with an assault rifle that they might have gone out during their lunch break and bought in 2 minutes or less, quicker than they could have mobile ordered Chipotle, and showed up at my school, and it was just me and my SRO, my school resource officer, with a sidearm. What would have happened? And I talked about that with my SRO many times, and we were in agreement. We would both die because the bullets coming out of those weapons come so fast, using NATO 5.56 round ammunition, that we could do nothing to stop them from getting to our students. And it's something that really frustrates me. And I always talk about a Fox News poll that they did. And they polled background checks, waiting periods, red flag laws, things that are common sense, closing some loopholes like the gun show loophole. And the majority of Americans support that. Gun owners support that. You know, everyone in my family owns guns. My brother-in-law is in the Navy. He has like 10 guns. And he told me, we all support these kind of laws. It's just extremist politicians that are making us less safe by not just doing the right thing. And so if I was elected to Congress, I would support all of the above, because I believe that is what government should do. It should strive to make us all a little bit safer each and every day. Thank you.
Francine?
As a child, I witnessed great atrocity. Gun violence, I never thought would ever hit our streets. But as of late, you know, I worry about my kids going to school and having be placed in a situation where I would never want any kid to go through what I've gone through. And there are parents that have lost children due to gun violence. As a member of Congress, I will do my best to ensure that, one, we repeal the Dickey Amendment, make sure that the CDC has enough funding to actually do a survey and tell us the facts about gun violence. We all have enjoyed our Second Amendment rights. I don't believe that it is an encroachment on our personal liberty, civil liberty, to have a little bit of regulation, red flag law, background check, maybe even ensuring that those who are selling are licensed professionals who can actually sell those equipment. There is nothing wrong in a little bit of regulation to preserve and protect our future most precious generation.
Thank you, Ms. Lee. Mr. Epler, anything to add?
None at this time.
All right. Our next couple of questions are going to go overseas. Since you guys are running for national office, sometimes foreign policy affects the U.S. House of Representatives in our country. So we'll first talk about the recent Israel and Palestine conflict. The October 2023 terror attacks from Hamas created an existential threat to Israel, and Israel has responded with massive military response along and inside the Gaza Strip. The result is a massively unstable region with threats from Iranian-sponsored proxies in Lebanon, Gaza, the West Bank, and Yemen. So far, the United States has stood beside its ally Israel, but the International Court of Justice just ruled that Israel must take action to prevent acts of genocide in Gaza during its military operations. Do you support the call for a ceasefire and a return of hostages from Hamas to Israel? And secondly, how far do you believe the president may act in responding militarily to Houthi rebel attacks or other subnational terror attacks in the region before he has to come to folks like you in Congress for that military action? And I think you're first, Francine.
Okay, for this one, I'm gonna stand up, okay? Yes, we should call for a ceasefire for the return of our hostages. Second, Israel is our ally, and we need to support them. Third, the president need our backing, need our support, but we also got to understand that currently, disagree with me or not, our dimes are a part of this genocide. I just don't think that we can have stability in the world if we allow the Houthi to attack our commercial vessels in the Red Sea. We got to stop them. That's why we're there. They're just, to me, they're just modern day pirates, and we just have to stop these pirates from destroying our economy. And that's all I got. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Epler?
Thank you. October 7th was a horrible day. 1,200 Jewish citizens of the state of Israel were hunted down, killed, tortured, live streamed, taken hostage because of the fact that they were Jewish and they live in Israel. I unequivocally condemn Hamas. They must be destroyed. And that goes the same for all the Iranian-backed proxies in the region. Hezbollah, the Houthi rebels, these are all proxies of Iran that are funding terrorism and destabilization in a region. Now, you asked about, do I support President Biden, forming international coalitions with 20 plus countries to secure, international waters? Of course, right? The Houthi rebels should not be committing acts of piracy in 2024. And I am proud that Biden is going out and getting an international response to police and patrol and make sure that our seas are safe for commerce and, honestly, for democracy and countering Iran. Now, the question of Israel and a ceasefire, we have now had, 20-something thousand Palestinians die. I believe the indiscriminate bombing should stop. I think we should move to tracking down individually special forces going out and killing each member of Hamas that put together that unbelievable attack. That attack in a country of 7 million Jews is equivalent to 30 9/11s happening. Hundreds of these people were just at a music festival. If it was ACL and 400 people were murdered at ACL, could you imagine the response? Now, I am pro-Palestinian, I am pro-Israel, I am 100% anti-Hamas, and I don't agree with far-right policies of Netanyahu. And I think all of those can be true. And I really do understand this issue, and I want to take 10 seconds here. I have a minor in Arabic. I lived with a Palestinian family in Jordan. My sister-in-law served in the IDF. My brother's family is Jewish. I've been to Israel 3 times. I've slept on IDF military bases. This is a complicated issue, but it deserves a very sophisticated answer and response. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Lee, you have 30 seconds to respond if you'd like.
We have a president. He is the president of the United States. We have to work with Netanyahu. He's the president of Israel, the prime minister. And we have to be able to sit down and work with him to ensure that innocent civilian are not used as targets. This situation hits home, and I get extremely emotional because it brings back a lot of memory, and it's lived experience. It's not something I read in book. It's lived experience that, we have to do our best to ensure that human rights and civilian lives are protected as best we can. And we, the United States, are champions of human rights. And we have to be able to say, please, think about the lives before we send bombs into a region and just.
Thank you, Ms. Lee.
Sorry.
That's no problem. Okay, I've already forgotten now who I started with. Who had that question last? You had it first, right? All right, this one's gonna be first for you, Mr. Epler. Russia and Ukraine. Ukraine is in its own ongoing existential crisis with Russia. The Biden administration has been resolute in standing with Ukraine and insisting on security assistance, fighting Russia's unlawful invasion. Do you support continued military aid to Ukraine? And if so, why do you support it? And how do you think Congress can pass military aid to Ukraine given the GOP's apparent all-out effort to obstruct any Ukrainian spending package?
Thank you. And just to clarify, it's just House Republican opposition. Actually, Senate Republicans want to send aid. A large majority of them do. And we see that in many issues. It's House Republicans that play politics and extremism. I 100% support sending aid to Ukraine. In fact, I think it's one of the best returns on our investment that we've ever made. I believe that when you look at dollars sent abroad, right, we've lost 0 American service members, and we've strengthened NATO, we've protected Europe, and we've stopped Russian incursion onto Ukrainian territory effectively. And when you look at the issue of this funding, and you look at the people in the House that are arguing against it, you just have to go back in time and think back to 2012 when Mitt Romney was running for president, and he answered a question at a debate, a little bit bigger debate than this, but I like this debate a lot. And that debate question asked him what he thought the most existential threat was abroad, and he answered Russia and Vladimir Putin. That was the presidential candidate for the GOP. Flash forward 12 years from now, you have the GOP cozying up to Putin. We have people saying, oh, he's a great guy. Vladimir Putin, someone who's committed more international atrocities, genocides, than anybody. The biggest autocratic bully of our generation, of our time. And people in the American government are praising him. Now, again, I say go back and look at the GOP senators that support this issue, right? And when you don't have an election every 2 years, they vote a little different than their, Colin Allred says, crackpots in the House. And that's the truth, right? And I'm running against somebody that, again, is playing politics with international order, democratic values, and our allies. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Lee?
On the issue of Ukraine and Russia, I believe that we should continue to fund the Ukraine Defense Force because, to me, if we don't, we might risk what happened in Vietnam where we had to pull out and all hell broke loose in that region. And I just feel that like Sam said, Putin is dangerous. Hillary said so. Our national security advisor said so. Russia is a threat, and Ukraine is our only line of defense in that region. And that's all I got. I mean, we have to protect our assets, we protect our allies. If not, we might go into an unstable region and we don't want that.
Okay. Do you have any rebuttal? You're good? All right. Well, Jenny gave me discretion to be able to ask follow-up questions should I want to. So I'm going to ask you a follow-up question, and I'm going to circle back to you since we have a little bit more time with this question. Given the fact that the House GOP is so obstructionist, what strategies do you think can be employed to actually pass Ukrainian aid in the House should you take office?
I think we need to vote him out. I mean, truthfully, I think, and it's really the reason that I'm running. I wouldn't be running if an extremist held this office. You know, I really look up to the people in Dallas County that ran against extremists in 2018. We got rid of Matt Rinaldi, Huffines, Pete Sessions. We didn't get rid of him, but we sent him way south, right? It's actually ironic because Colin went to Baylor and then he sent him down to Waco. But we need to get rid of extremists, and we need to give voters a campaign to vote for in November that matches common sense values. You know, honestly, I like to say this joke sometimes. Beth Van Dyne might be twice my age, but I'm really the only adult running for this seat. She is playing political theater, and I have real ideas that I want to enact. And so that's how I'll respond to that. I really think that this issue will only be solved, and so many other issues, if we vote extremists out of office. Thank you.
Ms. Lee, you want to add anything?
I'm a legal professional. I have a lot of people come before me, and I'm having to work with them in order to come to a common solution. And that's what we're going to have to do. There's 435 others, people that I'm going to have to work with. I can't get this thing done alone. We already got half on our side, but we don't have the majority. We have to go and work with the others to ensure that this package gets passed. I will share them my story. I'll let them know where I'm coming from, that it's not, I will set partisan politics aside to ensure that we get the job done for the people of these United States.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Lee. All right. Moving back domestically a little bit here, we're going to talk about the economy. Bill Clinton famously beat Judge H.W. Bush by focusing on a deteriorating economy. Biden, however, is overseeing an economic recovery and a growing economy. Recent reports showed the economy grew at 3.3% in the final quarter of 2023, and that since the passage of the Inflation Reduction Act, the rate of inflation across the economy has declined substantially. How do you communicate this economic revival to the community, and how do you combat the false negative advertisements fueling a false sense of economic anxiety amongst many in our population? And I think that's you, Francine.
So the president is doing great. Yesterday, there's a poll that came out, or a news article came out that says, the economy is stronger than all the analysts had expected. But are we feeling it here? I'm not. My roof is leaking right now, and and we're trying to make sure that we get that thing fixed. And we're having to deal with our insurance. When will the insurance cut kicked in? 15% deductible, 10% deductible. That's a lot. That's still money that we have to come up with before the insurance kicked in. When you go to the grocery store, everything's more expensive. Yes, the bipartisan infrastructure bill is helping, with the infrastructure, highways, bridges are being built, people are being employed, but yet the inflation, we're still feeling it right now. And it's going to take a little bit of time. It's going to take a little bit of time for it to overcome, to get past the hump, to be where we hopefully will be before the pandemic hit. But otherwise, it's a slow process. It's working, and I know it doesn't feel like it right now. I feel it myself today, but it is getting there.
Thank you. Mr. Epler?
Thank you. The governor of California, Gavin Newsom, always refers to these kind of really loud lies as coming from the hate machine, which is, he calls it the hate machine because it's all those loud people on radio, TV, podcasts, a lot of crazy podcasts out there. Ted Cruz, 3 times a week, you can listen to him on a podcast. But that hate machine is just spewing lies, right? I mean, about our economy that's getting better, Sean, like you mentioned. And they lie about everything incessantly. I mean, they'll say, oh, Biden, he's declaring war on oil and gas. Well, we're producing more oil and gas now than any time in our nation's history. It's under Biden, right? Now, I have a lot of ideas on energy and making sure that our energy companies can invest in renewable resources going forward. But I think the answer to your question lies with pointing out the lies. And I hope, and I know the Biden team will do this, I hope they use their dollars that they're raising to point out the facts. Point out the price of gas. Point out the declining level of inflation. Point out that, 2 years ago, everyone thought we were heading for like a recessionary cliff. Well, where's the recession? I don't see a cliff. And so that is what we must do. And we must be on the same page that we must be on a track to a better tomorrow. And the answer does not lie in House extremist ideology, which is just to defund everything, right? That 100% is not going to be pro-business. Beth Van Duyne likes to think that she's pro-business, but she votes against every, there's $35 billion coming back to North Texas to rebuild our infrastructure, roads, airports, and she votes against all of that. She votes no on all of that. And so I think that we owe it to ourselves to point it out with facts and then hold these people accountable for their votes and run on that specifically. So thank you, Sean.
Thank you. Francine, you have 30 seconds to respond if you'd like.
Yeah, I agree with Sam. I mean, we have to hold her accountable, and as your elected leader, as a member of Congress, my responsibility and charge is to ensure that we bring all maximized funding down to our district. And Beth is not serving our community. She has voted against any legislation that would benefit our community because she votes partisan. And again, as an elected leader, you represent your entire district, and you got to be able to set that partisanship aside and work with the other side to ensure that the community benefit, not me, the community benefits.
Thank you, Ms. Lee. All right. So let's fast forward. One of you has won the election. Now what? Do you have a specific piece of legislation that you want to pass? Or think of it this way, what's the one thing that you most want to affect when you get to Washington, and how would you accomplish it? Mr. Epler.
I already talked about Roe v. Wade, that's number 1, but I have 3 more, and I'll go quick, so I don't want to go over my time. First thing I would do, I'm big into education, big into workforce development. It really upsets me that states aren't funding their teachers, right? It upsets me that we have vacancies in math and chemistry classrooms. It upsets me that maybe the cure for cancer is in a student's mind that's in a zip code that doesn't have a biology teacher. And so what I would do with my second piece of legislation is I would propose a tax credit, $7,500, the same amount we give Teslas and electric vehicles, and I would propose it to every single American teacher. There's 4 million of them, 400,000 in Texas. That's $30 billion directly into the pocket of American educators. I'm an econ major. If you want better people, pay them. That's pretty simple. That's what I would do. I think the future, I think education is that important, and I don't think it's a political issue. And oh, by the way, we have the tax credit. It's pretty easy. Copy, paste it, then pass it. Second thing I would do is national service. I think that we need to bring this country together. I think that we should support our community colleges. I think that we should make college and education and credentialing easier for people in America and more affordable. I think we should propose 2 years of national service. If you complete it, you get 2 years of free community college. Free, right? You can use it for 4-year universities as well. And I think that is the direction. Ro Khanna, he's a great congressman. He is proposing that all community colleges in America get twice the funding to become technology hubs and to be retooled and retrained for the future. I support stuff like that. The third thing I do in my 19 seconds is term limits and a ban on individual stock trading. Again, this should not be a career for life. I think in Congress, in the House, you should serve 5 terms maximum. In the Senate, 3 terms. That's 10 years, 18 years, 28 years is far too much time for any of them. Thank you.
Time limits, not just term limits. Thank you, Mr. Epler. Francine?
That's our Democratic playbook, term limits. You know, it's very important that we understand this is a position to serve the public, and it should not be a career. You go in, do what's best for the community, and then you go out, and along the way, you mentor, uplift, and bring up future generations. I'm doing that in what I do. Whether I win this or not, it's not going to stop me from being who I am by myself as an individual. You know, I touch the lives of maybe 3, 4, 20, 30 people. As your elected leader, I would be able to touch, you know, maybe 100,000 or so at a time to encourage them to come out and vote and participate and engage. Voting doesn't cost us anything. Our founding father ensured that each of us has a right, has a voice, that we run our country. I'm sorry? Correct. Also to educate our community about the importance of making sure that we conduct the census. That is how we're going to maximize funding. I really would like to serve on House appropriation when I get elected, because without funding, there's nothing much we can do for our community, and I'm all about making sure that services and programs, education is properly funded so that we have a future generation that can take care of us. Thank you.
Thank you. Anything further, Mr. Epler?
No, thank you.
Okay. All right, we're going to proceed to our closing statements. Each of you will have 3 minutes to give a closing pitch to the audience and to your future constituents. And I don't remember who I started with, so I'm just going to start with you, Mr. Epler, because you're furthest away from me. We'll go backwards.
Awesome. Thank you, Sean. And thank you all for being here today on AFC NFC Championship weekend. I know that the Chiefs are going to play the Ravens and Lions 49ers. I hope that Francine and I were close to that level of entertainment, but I suspect we weren't. Anyways, I'm just really excited about the possibility. I jumped into this race because I looked up who my representative was, and I saw her votes. And I said, instead of complaining, why not just run? I'm 27 years old. I've spent my career, the past 6 years, teaching high school math. I was an assistant principal at Molina High School in Oak Cliff, serving students getting dual credit and associate's degrees at Mountain View College. And then I became a principal of an innovative school, Northlake Early College High School, where students got their associate's degree for free in high school. Some of them, most of them, went to 4-year universities. Some of them took a bonus from the Dallas Police Department because they had an associate's degree and served today in our police force. To me, I thought, wow, this is what we should be doing in this country. We should be focusing on programs like this. Schools like mine, where 98% of my students last year graduated with an associate's degree and a high school diploma. That is what government should be doing. But when I turned on the TV, all I saw were extremist leaders talking about book bans, talking about The Kite Runner and To Kill a Mockingbird and Toni Morrison and why they shouldn't be in our libraries. And I thought, what gives? This is wrong. We have so many issues and problems in this country. We should have a government that tries to address them instead of a government that just tries to burn everything down and run from the problems. And so that is what this campaign is about. It's about offering an alternative to extremism. My promise is that when I get elected, I'll vote to certify the presidential election. If that's Donald Trump or Joe Biden, that's fine. I will certify that election because I believe in democracy, I believe in the Constitution, and I believe that's what makes this country great. Popular sovereignty, the people. And this is a seat in the people's house. So thank you. Please follow along with our campaign. Please go to www.samepler.com, get involved, get a yard sign, throw a couple bucks if you can. Beth Van Dyne is incredibly well funded She has millions of dollars right now, and we need to get to parity with her. And we need to get rid of extremists from the top to the bottom. So support everybody running against Donald Trump, running against Ted Cruz, running against Beth Van Dyne, running against state House representatives that are trying to send private school voucher bills through the House in our state. I mean, it's never ending, and we need everyone to get involved. So thank you for your time. Go democracy, go vote.
Thank you. All right, Ms. Lee.
Thank you. I am a paralegal. I've worked for two judges, Stanton and Judge Tillery, currently going on 13 plus years now. Previously, I was in the legislature, so I do have the experience, the knowledge to actually understand each of the wording, each piece of legislation that comes out, that we need to make sure that it's properly worded so that the judiciary can actually interpret the law. Also, I'm a naturalized citizen. When I became naturalized, I took my oath of allegiance. Among those oaths was to preserve, protect, defend the Constitution and the law of the United States. Beth Van Dyne should not be sitting in our office currently. Like Sam said, she voted against certifying the vote. She has violated her oath of office, and she needs to be gone. And this is not politics, it's fact. And that's all I have to say about her. Don't get me wrong, we live in the same neighborhood. We live in the same gated neighborhood, and that is, our son graduated from the same school. That is the only commonality we have. There's nothing, and her and I are the same. I believe in our rule of law, and as a voting citizen, I believe that our vote is the most precious, most valuable, and it should not cost any of us anything to go out and vote. So we definitely, I will try my best to work to end Citizens United. We need to get money out of politics, because our founding father had envisioned that our government is run by each of us and not by corporations. So for me, that is my biggest reason for running, to ensure that our children, my children, has a future, future generation, and that we will have an America to live in and still be the beacon of hope for everyone. Because I came here with nothing, and our community has given me so much. And I can't say, because, to be able to live and breathe without trepidation, without fear, that is the American ideals. People come here, on the Statue of Liberty, it says, give me your tired, give me your poor, your huddled masses. And it's just, the beacon of hope for all of us, that we can come here and live free and be a productive member of society and not be vilified, and just because we're different, we can be ourselves, be a part of community, and be an America that our children can be proud of. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, let's give everyone another round of applause for these great candidates. Thank you very much for your time and your commitment to public service and being willing to stand up for what's right. And thank the crowd for coming and participating today. Thank you very much.
Thank you all for coming. Maybe we'll have another one of these with the nominee against Beth Van Dyne in a few months.